You think the moment a bird trusts you is about you, your patience, your kindness, your consistency. And maybe you've read that somewhere. Be patient, move slowly, show up every day. But here's what nobody tells you. The bird doesn't trust you. Not exactly. It trusts a version of you, a very specific version. The one that shows up when you're standing in that yard, in that quiet, with nowhere else to be. And that version, you might not even recognize it as yourself. That's what this is really about. Most people who feed birds will tell you the same story. They started putting out a feeder. Nothing happened for a while. Then, one day, a bird came close, and they felt something shift, not just excitement, something quieter than that, like being seen by something that had no reason to trust anyone. And they started coming back to the yard more often, not just to feed the birds, to feel that thing again. What changed wasn't the birds. What changed was them.
And that's the part worth understanding. Because once you see it, once you really see what the birds are responding to, you'll never look at your backyard the same way. Let's start with something that might feel a little uncomfortable. Birds don't care who you are. They don't know your name, your job, your history. They have no access to your intentions. When you walk out into that yard every single time, you are a stranger to them in one very important sense. They can't read your mind. They can only read your body, your movement, your rhythm, the energy you're carrying without knowing you're carrying it. And birds are extraordinarily good at this. Research on avian threat perception has shown that birds don't just react to obvious danger, a sudden movement, a loud noise. They respond to subtle patterns. The way a predator moves differently from a non-threat. The particular quality of stillness that signals safety versus the stillness of something waiting to strike.
They've been reading bodies for millions of years. They are, in a very real sense, experts at exactly this. So when you walk into your yard after a hard day, tense shoulders, fast steps, mind still running through everything that went wrong, the birds feel that. Not metaphorically, literally. Your movement pattern changes. Your posture changes. The rhythm of how you approach the feeder changes. And the birds respond to all of it before you've even registered that you're tense. This is why some days the birds are close and some days they're not. It's not random. It's you. Think about the last time you had a genuinely calm morning in the yard. Maybe it was a weekend. Maybe you'd slept well. You weren't thinking about anything in particular, just watching the light change, listening to the sounds. And the birds were different that day, weren't they? Closer, less skittish. Maybe one landed somewhere it never had before. That wasn't luck. That was the birds responding to the version of you that showed up. Now here's where it gets interesting, because this isn't a one-way street. If you've been spending time in a yard with birds, really spending time, not just glancing out the window while you do something else, you may have noticed something happening to you. A kind of slowing down that doesn't feel forced. A willingness to just stand there, doing nothing, that you wouldn't have had a few years ago. Some people describe it as the yard teaching them patience, but I think it's more specific than that. I think the birds are teaching you how to be in your own body differently. Because here's the thing about birds. They are completely, totally present. A chickadee at your feeder is not thinking about yesterday. It's not planning tomorrow. It is entirely, absolutely in this moment. And when you spend enough time watching that, really watching it, not photographing it or narrating it in your head, just watching, something in you starts to match it. Your nervous system takes a cue. Your breath slows. Your thoughts space out. You become someone different. And that someone, that quieter, slower, more present version of you, is exactly who the birds have been waiting for. If you're finding this as fascinating as I do, hit that subscribe button. There's so much more about the hidden world of backyard birds that most people never get to see, and I want you to see all of it. But let's go deeper, because understanding that birds respond to your state is one thing. Understanding exactly what signals they're reading, that's where it gets really specific. There are 3 things birds track above almost everything else when they're deciding whether to stay close to a human, and none of them are what most people focus on. The first is predictability, not calmness, predictability. There's an important difference. A person can be calm in a way that's actually unsettling to birds, if that calmness is inconsistent. If you're perfectly still one moment and then make a sudden movement the next, the unpredictability itself is the threat signal. Birds' survival instinct is wired around pattern recognition. A consistent pattern, even one that includes normal movement, is far safer to them than sporadic stillness punctuated by surprise. This is why people who move at the same pace, in the same general patterns every time they're in the yard, even if they're not trying to be calm by any conscious standard, often have birds that are unusually comfortable around them. The birds have mapped their movement. They know what to expect. And known equals safe. Think about the people in your life who immediately put you at ease. Often it's not that they're particularly quiet or still, it's that they're consistent. You know how they're going to respond. There's no hidden volatility. Birds feel this the same way you do. They just feel it through movement patterns instead of words. The second thing birds track is your direction of attention. This is subtle, but enormously important. When you look directly at a bird, you trigger a hardwired alarm response. Direct eye contact from a larger animal is a predator signal across almost every species. This is why new bird watchers are often frustrated. The more intently they watch, the more the birds move away. You are accidentally doing exactly what a hunting animal does. The people birds trust most have learned, often without realizing it, to look near the birds rather than at them, to let their gaze rest somewhere adjacent, to use peripheral vision. This reads to the bird as disinterest, and disinterest from something larger than you is one of the safest signals in the natural world. It means you're not hunting. It means you're just there. There's something almost meditative about learning to do this. You stop trying to capture the bird with your attention and start just sharing space with it. And that shift, from observer to presence, is exactly when birds tend to come closer. The third thing is what I'd call your ambient sound signature. Every person has one. The particular combination of sounds you make just by existing in a space. Your footsteps, the rhythm of your breathing if you're close enough, the sounds of whatever you're doing with your hands. Birds learn these patterns the same way they learn the sounds of the yard itself. A familiar ambient signature becomes part of the background, part of the known world. This is why people who do quiet, repetitive tasks in their yard, gardening, reading, just sitting with a cup of something, often find birds approaching more readily than people who stand stock still trying to attract them. The activity creates a consistent sound pattern. The birds file it away. Over days and weeks, it becomes part of the safe soundscape of your yard. You're not trying to attract them. You're becoming part of where they live. And that's a completely different thing.
Now I want to tell you about something that I think is one of the most overlooked aspects of the whole backyard bird experience. And it's this. The yard doesn't just change the bird's behavior, it changes yours. But not in the way self-help books talk about when they say, spend time in nature. It's more specific, more strange, and honestly, more interesting. When you start paying attention to the signals that birds respond to, when you start noticing your own tension, your own pace, your own direction of gaze, you develop a kind of body awareness that most adults have completely lost. We spend so much of our lives in our heads, planning, reviewing, worrying, narrating. The body is just the thing that carries us around. But birds pull you back into it
because the feedback is immediate and honest. You can't talk your way into a bird's trust. You can't explain your intentions. You can only be different. And to be different, you have to notice what you currently are. A lot of people who spend years feeding backyard birds describe a gradual change in how they move through the world. Not just in the yard, everywhere. A slower pace, a greater comfort with silence, a decreased need to fill every moment with purpose or productivity. Some of them connected to the birds. Many of them don't even realize the connection until someone points it out. But think about what's actually happening. You have been practicing every single day the art of becoming someone that a wild creature chooses to be near. You've been getting feedback from one of the most honest sources in the world. An animal that has no social reason to be polite, no ability to pretend, no agenda except its own survival. If a bird trusts you, you earned it. Not with words, not with good intentions, with who you actually were in that moment, in that yard. And here's what I find extraordinary about that. We spend so much of our lives trying to be understood, trying to communicate who we really are to the people around us, trying to be seen accurately. And most of the time, even the people who love us are seeing a version of us filtered through their own history, their own needs, their own projections. The bird sees none of that. The bird sees only what's real. The tension in your shoulders, the quality of your attention, the rhythm of your presence. And when the bird comes close, when it lands on the feeder while you're standing right there, or hops along the ground near your feet, or sits on a branch at eye level and just looks, what it's saying, in the only language it has, is, the version of you that's here right now is safe. Not the version from work, not the version that's worried about the future, not the version performing for anyone, the version that's actually here. That's the moment people describe as the one that changes something. Not because a bird did something remarkable, but because they were, briefly, completely real, and something wild recognized it. If this is landing for you, if you've felt something like this in your own yard and never quite had the words for it, leave a comment below. Tell me about the first time a bird came close. I read every single one, and those stories are some of the most beautiful things people share on this channel. So what do you do with all of this? Not in a to-do list way. Not, here are 7 steps to make birds trust you faster. That's not what this is about. But there are a few simple things, and I mean genuinely simple, not complicated, that flow naturally from understanding what we've talked about. The first is to stop trying. I mean this seriously. The trying itself, the focused intention to attract a bird, to get it closer, to have the experience, creates exactly the kind of tense, directed attention that birds move away from. The people who have the deepest relationships with their backyard birds are almost universally people who stopped making it a project. They go out to be in the yard. The birds are part of the yard. Whatever happens, happens. This is much harder than it sounds, especially at first. We're trained to pursue outcomes, to optimize, to measure progress. The yard asks you to do the opposite. It asks you to show up without an agenda and trust that the showing up is enough. The second is to do something else out there, anything quiet and repetitive. Read, garden, have your morning coffee without your phone, sit and watch the light. The birds will be in the background, and that's exactly where you want them at first, not the focus, the context. Let them file away your sounds, your patterns, your presence. Let yourself become part of the place. The third, and this is the one that surprises people most, is to notice how you feel when you go out there. Not as a self-improvement exercise. Just notice. Are you carrying something from before? Is there a tightness somewhere you didn't register until you tried to be still? Because the yard will show you. The birds will show you. Not unkindly. They'll just be further away on the hard days. And closer on the days when you've somehow, without trying, let something go. Over time, most people find that the yard becomes a kind of reset. Not because they made it one. Because the feedback loop, birds closer when you're present, birds distant when you're not, teaches your nervous system something. You start arriving at the yard already a little quieter, like your body knows what the place requires and starts preparing before you even get there. There's a word in Japanese, satoyama, that describes the space between wild nature and human settlement, the place where the two meet and both are changed by the meeting. I think a backyard with birds in it is a kind of satoyama. Not because of what you've planted or built there, but because of what happens in that space between you and them. Each adapting to the other, each in some quiet way made different by the encounter. The birds didn't choose you because you did everything right. They chose the version of you that knows how to be in that yard. And that version, the one that moves slowly, pays attention differently, exists without an agenda. That's not separate from who you are. That is who you are when you give yourself the space to be it. And maybe that's what your backyard birds have been trying to tell you, in the only language they have, every single morning. If you want to understand more about the hidden lives of the birds in your yard, how they see, how they communicate, what they're really doing when you think they're just eating, make sure you're subscribed. There's a lot more to explore. And I'll see you in the next one.